And we are back with day 4 of Survivor 46 and 46. I just finished watching Survivor Marquesas. The reunion's about to start, which means Rosie O'Donnell is about to show up with Colby on a motorcycle. It's a lot of fun and only a tad bit awkward. But I am joined today, one, by McKenna Feeney, who is one of the hosts of the org Dynamic Character Productions, a game that I have played twice. One of my favorite games that I've ever played in the online or live game community, and the host of Survivor New York, Chris Lord, one of my favorite games that I've ever played, period. My own, one of 2 live games that I have played. I'm appreciative of y'all coming out to talk about this season in particular because it's time around, like for the longest time, Marquesas is always kind of set in the middle to lower high. This time around, it was great. And we're gonna get into a lot of it, but I always want to say, for the longest time, I always saw the vote after John Carroll's vote, like from Zoe to the general, I was like, oh yeah, it's just filler because we already know what's going to happen. Those episodes are actually a lot of fun from then until now. And so I want to talk about a lot of that. So we'll start with the older of the 2 of you first. Chris, what was your first experience? I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. I didn't know we were going to be sensitive about this.
Okay.
It's more.
You know what? Can I just tell you something that it's kind of ironic because I wanted to show that Survivor nowadays doesn't do anything as cool as they used to, and I randomly found this in a cabinet like recently. This is the TV guide from Survivor Africa. They had all the contestants get their own little, magazine to promote the show, and my favorite Survivor is Lindsay Richter from season 3. So I had her magazine back in 2001. I got that.
Nice.
And I found out about Survivor Marquesas from a People magazine back in early 2002. Mm-hmm. So I was 10 years old or 11 years old on my journey to this season. Mm-hmm. This was my first season. It's still like so important to me in my life, and just like knowing that people are rewatching it and like just experiencing it for the first time also is just so cool because it's just such a monumental moment. So many moments in Survivor history can lead back to this season, and so many of the archetypes within this season.
Yes. McKenna, as the younger of them, I'm kidding.
And the more beautiful.
What was your first experience watching this season? I'm assuming you didn't watch it live.
I did not.
So what was your first experience with the season? Did you know a lot of the stuff that happened, or did you go in fresh?
No, I came in very fresh. So as some people may know, my first introduction with Survivor was through Richard Hatch on The Biggest Loser. So that was in the break of Co-Wrong and Millennials versus Gen X. So I had a long off season until I could actually watch Survivor live, but I binged everything that was on Hulu at the time, and then got all access and able to watch like the middle seasons that weren't there. But Marquesas is like so special to me because a lot of people know I stan Tammy so hard. Like Tammy is one of my favorite Survivor players because to me she was like the original purple edit. Like all of a sudden she won immunity for me, and I was like, where has she been on my screen the entire time? And so whenever I watch Marquesas now, I only focus on Tammy, and I'm like, oh, she's here, but she's not getting confessionals. It's all like camp life stuff. So I'm like a big Tammy fan and wanted to come on to talk Tammy.
And it's funny that you say that because this time around, I want to less focus on the bigger character. I want to focus less on the bigger characters and focus on other people. Having said that, I did focus on Sean a lot this time around, but Tammy was one of them. And she started. There's a thing that I kept calling the Tammy side eye because Tammy side eyes a lot of people a lot of times during this season, both at Tribal and during camp life, they'll just cut to Tammy and she's just looking at people and she's reading them. And I don't even know if she has the right reads, whatever that means. But it's just the way that she looks at people. I'm like, I think I love this woman, and I think I understand. And we'll get into the whole Boston Rob thing, people. Don't worry. When he says, "Oh, there's not much hope there," because I have never, Tammy wasn't my crush this season at first. I think she might be now. She's amazing for the edit that she does get. I would say that the original purple player was probably. Oh my goodness! I just did this 2 days ago.
Like first one ever you're talking about?
It's
or this season?
Nick?
From Survivor Australian Outback.
Nick, right?
Nick Brown. Yes. Nick.
Yeah. I was like, I just listened to this podcast today.
I think Nick Brown's the first ever purple character, but yes, I would say that I would put Tammy in that category. And it's funny, even before John gets voted out, people are like, it's Tammy and John. It's Tammy and John. And we really don't hear Tammy's side of the thing until after John is gone, where she's like, oh, yeah, we got. Well, did you? So, Chris, who were some of your folks on the season? McKenna had Tammy. I'm sure she has a few more. Who were your folks?
You know what? Like I said, Marquesas is my first season. I love everybody. I just want to say on the Tammy note, love her. Her final tribal council speech is so intimidating. If I was sitting in either of the two spots, I would be scared shitless by Tammy's aggression. Like, I don't know if I can say it's aggressive, but it's just so intimidating.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Very strong. I don't know how the two girls, they got put up with that, but they did. Also, her immunity challenge win is the first time, I think, in Survivor history that somebody like needed immunity so incredibly bad, and she studied those stilts. I think I read somewhere that she basically hogged them and wouldn't let anybody else use them, and it worked in her advantage, and she won that immunity. But going back to your question, Gina actually is one of my all-time Survivor favorite players, along with Nalia and Pascal. But Gina really just was such an amazing character that we don't see too often on the show, and she's like a true pre-merge underdog in the original. And I also just read this article that she is the most over-edited pre-merge survivor in Survivor history in terms of confessionals per episode.
Wow.
So she
probably
has the
Banu, right?
Edits.
Banu.
She actually
Banu probably.
No. Banu's number 2. She's number 1.
Oh wow.
She is. I just saw this video. I think it was
Gina.
wow. I was like, when you said we were going to do Marquesas, I was like, damn, I get to say that little fact about Gina and put some
Gina for Survivor 50. Let's go.
Seriously.
Yeah, that's surprising.
Gina also, I think, was like a crush of Jeff Probst. I remember reading in the forums back in the day.
I want to say I think they dated. I heard that rumor somewhere that they dated, but
I read that too. Way back when.
I wouldn't put it past Jeff. Gina was my crush for the season until Tammy came along this time around. I love athletic women. What can I say? For me, my Marquesas story, for people that know me, and it's so funny listening to Vezeppia talking about it, people sitting in hair salons and barbershops, because I was sitting in my mom's hair salon when Vezeppia won, and I a lot, and yes, I understand what it sounds like, but it was almost like slavery had ended again, because everyone lost their fucking minds when she won. It was a big moment, and I remember being 11, 12 years old and crying about it because I thought it was the craziest thing that I had ever seen. And I didn't watch Marquesas again until 2020, and watching it in 2020, I watched it again, and everyone, at this point I had entered the online Survivor community, which I didn't know existed. And I'm hearing all these people say, oh yeah, KVO, Kathy. And I'm like, I don't even remember this woman. And then watching Marquesas in 2020, and then for 42 and 42 in 2022, and now, Vezeppia is still my person, and if anything, Sean has actually may have taken her spot as my favorite person on the season, because Sean is the narrator for most of the season, except for maybe the family visit episode where it is mostly Kathy centric, and that makes sense because her son comes to the camp. I'm not a Kathy fan, and I want to get y'all stuff. I'm not a fan of two people in particular in this season. Kathy is one of them. We'll get to the other one in a little bit. Why, first of all, are y'all fans of Kathy? But two, why do you think that she has such this large following? We'll start with McKenna.
I don't mind Kathy. She's not like I like the V win and appreciate the V win. So do I think she should have like gone over Vecepia? No, because I like the work and the grind that Vecepia had to go throughout the entire season. But I can appreciate Kathy's work and grind because she had to basically flip on her entire alliance and not just like pander to them and go along with what they want to say. She kind of made her own path and was one of the first to carve her own path in a game where it wasn't tribal line based. She aligned with Vecepia and Sean and grabbed Pascal and Nalia to make this new group of 5 to dominate the rest of the game.
Chris?
Can I say something about Vecepia really quick?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I just want to say that Vecepia's win was very monumental for me and for a lot of people. And I don't think a lot of people understand. At the time of Vecepia's win, she was the first African-American person to win any major reality television show almost in the entire world. So it was like really important and a great representation. And then it took all the way until season 42 for another African-American female to win the game. So I don't think even Vecepia was ready for that sort of perception or that sort of like title that she had withheld for so many years, because she was like the first. She should be in the Guinness World Record books for that. She is an icon, and I think there needs to be a lot more respect on her name. She's done a lot of podcasts talking about how she's been shunned by Jeff Probst and CBS, and it's very honestly disappointing to see that. But on to Kathy. So yes, at the time of Survivor Marquesas, I was a fan because Kathy is somebody that was an underdog from the very beginning. You saw those first 3 episodes, completely shunned from her tribe. If they had lost any of those 3 challenges, she would have been voted out. And if anyone's ever been in a live reality game or an org, being on the bottom and knowing you're on the bottom and knowing that if your team loses at any point and you're going to go home, it's a very daunting situation to be in. So from Kathy to make it through that first hurdle was like, wow, this is really cool to see like an underdog survive to like the next phase of the game. So she gets into the swap. She's not really well liked by Nalia or Pascal, but they need her in order to survive because they don't know the situation between Sarah and Gina, if they're like friends or not. But once Sarah goes home, you know, Pascal and Nalia could decide to vote out Kathy if they wanted to, but they kind of stay true to Road 2 and everything like that. But come the merge, you know, Kathy really is controlling the game in a positive way. You know, I don't really see her as a negative light so much until you get to the final 4, final 3, maybe. And then definitely in All Stars, but I'm sure you'll deal with that later. Kathy's just like that underdog story that almost seemed like impossible for her to get to the end. Like she kind of like continued the storyline for Gina a little bit, but on a different spectrum. I can't say I love Kathy, you know, I do like her a lot. And exactly how McKenna said, she kind of like carves this new path, and it was like a new sort of era that Survivor had begun with Marquesas, and Kathy was sort of like a big part of that.
And I will say that I enjoy Kathy in spurts this season, and it's very hard as a person that is rewatching for the 1,000th time to not. This has been the main thing for these first 4 seasons is not thinking about All Stars, because when you think about All Stars and if you think about Kathy and All Stars, it's like, all right, I really don't like this person. But here, it's fine. I do love an underdog story, and I do like her on Road 2. I think where it starts to become, and I think it's one of those, her fans annoy me more than she actually, where it's like, oh man, you remember that time that Kathy flipped on the Road 2 4 and it was Kathy this and Kathy that? I'm like, it wasn't like, it was a group. And if anything,
yeah.
if anything, Sean went to these people and did this, and it was. But I don't want to even say it was just Sean. It felt like it was a group of people that decided, hey, we just saw how this challenge went. Let's do something about it. And so from then on, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm cool with Kathy. Kathy's fine, blah blah blah. And even at Final Five, where Vecepia and Sean are saying, hey, this whole thing, you're in the middle, and we know what this is about. And Kathy's like, I haven't thought about the race thing. And said, yeah, okay, fine. And I'm not annoyed that she voted Sean in that situation. I am annoyed that one group of these people, and I guess we'll go to the final five with this. One group is straight up saying, hey, we will never vote against each other, being Pascal and Nalia. We will never vote against each other, ever. Vecepia and Sean, yeah, they're tight, and yeah, I don't think they're going to vote against each other, but they have at least voted differently, I think, twice up to this point. So there is a paper trail of the two of them not always being on the same side. Do we think that Kathy made the right decision situation, or do you think she was always going to end up in a situation where she doesn't win and there's a rock draw? Chris?
You know what? I always look at the final six vote where Kathy should have made a jump in the game. Robert was down and out. He had nobody. And it made no sense for the other groups to, approach him about anything, because I think they both in the back of their mind had Kathy as their third person. I think Sean and V really were planning to go to the final three with Kathy, and Nalia and Pascal were thinking the same thing. So if Kathy had went in there and went to the final four with Rob, Sean, and V, I think it puts her in a really good position where she really isn't the target at all. And then if she had went to the final four with Rob, Nalia, and Pascal, I think she also is not in that position where she's the target. I think she should have utilized him. I don't think that. I remember Robert physically was not doing well at that stage in the game as well.
Do you remember his shirt at Final Tribal?
Yeah.
Dress.
I think that's what Kathy should have done. But I totally agree with you in what you said about Sean and V. Like, they had their own games completely separately than Nalia and Pascal. And if she had went to the final four with them, even, I think Kathy could have still made the final two.
McKenna?
Yeah, it's tough because I think Vecepia and Sean, now that it's at the end game, I think would not have broken because they're so close. They're so close to the end of the game. And why break now when Sean might feel that... Yeah, that's true. Why break now when we both have the same end goal, and you think that you can beat the other one in Final Tribal Council? So I think she really is between a rock and a hard place, and in her case of going with what you know might be an easier route to get to the end than going with the people who you don't know, because she didn't swap even with them either. So I can see why she made her choice, but then again, using Robert at the six could have benefited her more long term.
It's the Kim Johnson thing from yesterday, where like Kim Johnson is at a few points in the end game where at some point she could have linked up with T-Bird and Kim Powers or whatever and done something. And we get a lot of confessionals and a lot of moments where it's like, oh man, she might actually do this, knowing full well she doesn't do this. And I think Kathy's put in the same position where she could do something with Tammy and the general to take out, but I think at this point the game is still the same. The game is still growing. We have a Pagonging in season 1. Season 2 is fluid, but it's still the same 3 people kind of running the show. In season 3, it's much of the same. It's the same 3 to 4 people running the show with a few little mixes in there. And then here is where we get a whole game actually shifted. It's not until maybe 6 that things start to actually become fluid. It's not like tribal lines actually mean nothing at that point. And I think that's where Kathy runs into that situation. And I do feel like Kathy probably beats mostly everyone at the game. At the end of the game, I do think she beats Pascal. I do think she beats Nalia. And it's funny because there's a confessional where someone says Nalia is riding Pascal's coattails. And I'm like, based off of what I'm seeing, it's the other way around. Like Nalia is the one that goes to Pascal consistently in the first 2 merge episodes. Say, hey, maybe we should start thinking about this. And Pascal, no, because people like Sean and V don't deserve to win this game. But we won't go there yet. But I never saw Nalia riding Pascal's coattails because I did feel like Sean and V felt of Nalia was playing this sweet pea role to perfection. And I do feel like there are spots where Nalia could have beaten certain other folks, but not Vesepia or Kathy. I do think she destroys Pascal. So we do have a question. Hypothetically speaking, if Sean, Vesepia, and Joss and Rob made the final 3, wow, that's going way back. Final immunity. Who do you think he would have voted out? Rob. I think he would have voted out.
No, I think he would have voted. No, it would have been Vesepia. There's no way.
She's got to go because she's sweet talking all of Rotu.
But that's the problem with us going that far back is the fact that there's a lot of stuff like what happens at final 10 then who goes home in that situation. Do they flip on John Carroll then and then we go, because if that's the case, and that's, I guess we'll go into the Boston.
It's a lot of what ifs with that.
Yeah, it's a lot of what ifs. I guess we'll go into the Boston Rob thing. So I understand that, and I tweeted about this earlier. It's very cool for you to either love or hate Boston Rob. I have always just been like, oh yeah, I like Rob. Rob's cool. I'm not, he's the best, and I'm not like, oh, he's overrated. It's like, yeah, Rob's cool. Especially in these first 2 seasons, once again, just kind of straying away from All-Stars for right now. Rob is playing the game. He's playing very hard, and vote out confessional, and I forgot about that until today. His vote out confessional is what everyone's vote out confessional should be, and it's not. It's like, hey, I was playing the game. I hope no one takes anything personal. I would love to be friends with these people after the game. I'm like, I love this. This is what this is. This is a game, and you can see in this moment, Rob is still treating this thing as a game. Once the game is over and, you have that thing lifted from you, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm all right. My life's not over. I did like some of these people. I would love to be friends. On the flip side of that, in the game where he's saying that Vesepia is an ass kiss, I think, yeah, that's why Vesepia lasted as long as she did, because she was kissing ass until she found. So what did you guys think of Boston Rob Part 1, Chris?
He's a very fresh breath of air in a way. It's kind of like touching a little bit like Richard Hatch level of like a villain. And you don't see that in Australia, and you really don't see that in Africa so much. Just someone being so openly villainous and a little bit funny about it, and using that in their confessionals. As a gay man, I still cringe when he goes up to John and is like, "Are you gay?"
And John just goes, I'm just like, with moments like that, I just keep saying, it's 2001, it's 2001. Just like
totally understand. Like I can say that it's 2001. It makes sense. And Gabe is right. He's young. He's messy. He flirts with Sarah, hooks up with her. He does the morning show, is the goofball. He I just remember him like going after Zoe in the merge or calling her a man or something like that. And then what did he say about the general? He said something.
He's got a little sausage. He says that Zoe's the toughest man on the tribe. Tammy has a boyfriend, so there's no hope there. And that John's a big time queer is, I think, the phrase that he used.
I'm sorry. So that's the thing. Like, he's a villain, but he's funny about it, and he made it iconic. I have to say, like, for 2001, he was great TV, and that's what made it good. And after watching Australian Outback And watching Survivor Africa, I'm sure you can agree, Andrew, that he brought something completely different that those seasons did not have in terms of a character, in terms of entertainment. And
Yeah,
that's why he probably returned
make All
onto
Stars.
All
Yeah,
Stars.
Yeah.
McKenna.
I agree. I don't know if like is the correct term for Boston Rob 1.0, but he is great on the screen. And I feel like whenever we see Boston Rob on subsequent seasons or even other reality shows, I'm always like, oh, Boston Rob again. But then I'm in it and watching this man play, and I'm like glued to the screen, enthralled at watching him play and maneuver in social situations. So he even had the chops and like the hunter blind side at that point in the game was not heard of. But he's like, he's not my ally. And that's like mind blowing at this point in Survivor history where we're getting rid of a strong challenge competitor. You never do that at the tribal phase in ye olden days. So like he's really cultivating a new way to play Survivor.
Yeah.
Facts.
The fact that Boston Rob has been in reality TV, whatever, for 3 decades, and he's played in at least one game in 3 different decades, right? Now at this point, I'm pretty sure, is a testament to him as a character. And yes, once again, I understand that some people think he's the most overrated person that's ever played. I understand that some people think he's the greatest thing that's ever existed. I appreciate Boston Rob for everything that he has done for the show, including in this season where he is the merge boot. Like, we don't see him again past the merge until All Stars. And if you're watching it chronologically, as I am now, it's like, okay, yeah, like he's a fun character, but like, you know, why is he coming back to all? And I think, you know, both of you raised this point of like, because we had never actually had like a out and out villain. You know, season 1 we had Rich, but Rich was just one of 2 people actually playing the game because they didn't know what the game was. Season 2 we had Jerry, which, as I talked about 2 days ago, wasn't really a villain, but like whatever. She was
fine. Just a mean girl.
Yeah,
like
she was a mean girl. It wasn't beef jerky. Season 3, I made my point yesterday, and if Julia Rowe, if you're listening, I think that Lex was like the first villain, but I also thought he was compelling enough that I understood why he was an All-Stars. Rob, I don't even see as an all-and-out villain because I am rooting for the underdog in this situation. But when they go to row 2 and he's stirring the pot and he's doing all of this, it's like, okay, cool, maybe this will work. And I think that to start off this entire point, what bit him in the ass and what he should have been paying attention to is, oh, Viseppi's over here kissing ass, and Viseppi, I don't trust Viseppi because of this, that, and the other. It's like, if you learned from this and realized that that was Viseppi's strategy from beginning to end, and she says it so many times during Final Tribal of, I wanted to make these connections with these people, and that's always been my thing. And everyone knows I'm a social game person first, strategic and physical doesn't matter, but strategic second. The fact that Viseppi was able to go in and find herself in a lot of situations where a weaker player may have gotten voted out at a different point is a testament to her game. Because yes, on original Maramu, she would have been probably on the bottom if things had gone the way of previous seasons. On Swap Row 2, yes, they did win, 2 of the 3 challenges, so they really didn't have to do much there. But even going into the merge, if Rob had shut his mouth, they could have possibly gone after V or Sean first before Rob. And I'm not saying that I want Rob to shut his mouth, because I do think that the merge episode is actually pretty good from beginning to end, because it starts with him and Kathy flirting. And they get to the camp and he's like trying to buddy up with everyone's like, no, we're one tribe now, like we're friends, let's hug, blah blah blah, let's go. It's like, it's so wholesome knowing what Rob actually is. And like I said, when he gets voted out, he takes it so gracefully. And that's something that really only like him and Sean take it very well. There are some people that don't take it well this season. I do say that I felt so horrible for John and his. It's like he hoped that he didn't let his mom down, and I almost cried. But I do think this is a good start to the Boston Rob narrative, and we'll see how the Boston Rob narrative goes this Sunday. And let's go to OG Maramu for a bit here.
The morning show. It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorites.
What do we? Is this the first all and out dumpster fire tribe, or do we not get that for a couple more seasons? Or do we not get that until maybe like Oolong?
No, this is
bad. This
is wackadoodle time tribe. Like, you have Peter talking about holes. Like, that's one of my biggest fears in life. Things with holes in it, and he's talking about it right on day one. That would be my first choice.
He's a fruit loop.
Can I say, like, the voting is just so bizarre. Like, that first tribal, 5 Peter, 2 on Sarah, 1 for Patricia. It's just like right from the bat, like they are just all over the place.
Yeah. It is, I think, one of the first like big, just really bad tribes.
Yeah, and it's funny because looking at the swap Maramu tribe, it's like, well, these people are screwed, and they end up winning a fair few challenges on that. Like at face value, Swap Maramu should be one of the worst tribes of the first 4 seasons. Yes. And in reality, they win a couple of advantages, and they win an immunity. Like, well,
the swap mechanic is just dumb too. I mean, granted, it's only their second time swapping, but like not equaling out the tribes is just maddening to me, and I would never wish that upon. Like, I feel like the swap Maramu were just doomed in that sense, not necessarily the people, but just that they're so down in numbers that they can't sit anyone out. Like, that's such an advantage to row to, and Boston Rob, Visepia, and Sean just got gifted into that.
Yeah,
where now Pascal, Nalia, and Kathy are screwed out of that.
That's such a great point, McKenna.
Yeah, and I do enjoy Maramu for what they were, which is a dumpster fire, yes. But and it's funny because everyone's like, oh yeah, Hunter Ellis. And in my head, there's only been up to this point one god, whatever you want to call him, Colby, that has actually made it that far in a game, because in season 1, I don't think anyone was actually looking at Wigglesworth as a goddess until she kept on winning. No one was looking at her as the challenge threat of that season. I feel like they were probably looking at like maybe Jervis or Joel or somebody else like that. In season 2, or Greg, yeah. Season 2, yes, Colby makes it to the end. Fine, he can have it. Season 3, they get rid of Clarence. Not Clarence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get rid of Clarence.
Yeah.
They get rid of Clarence at the merge. And here, so when everyone's like, oh man, people like that always make it to the end, it's like there's really not much context, because they haven't even seen Africa, so they have no context except for Colby to say, hey, this person always makes it to the end. Having said that, I do think it was a good move in that situation to do that, because we know that, hey, we're probably going to merge at 10. Best case scenario, we win one of the next 3 challenges, in which case we get rid of Gina and we get rid of Sean or V. Probably Sean or V. Or maybe Sarah. Maybe we can convince them to get rid of Sarah. I don't think it's a horrible strategy. It's just that when you hit the merge, what do you expect to happen based off of what you have seen on TV up to this point? And that's the thing with a lot of these early seasons, is you only have a small sample size to go off of. And the other thing with these early seasons, I call this the part 3 of the trilogy of seasons where Survivor tried to kill their players. Because in Australian Outback, we know what happened there. Africa, hey, look, they're lions. Don't worry about it. Here, they don't get a lot of the stuff that they had gotten in the first 3 seasons. You have these bugs that are killing everyone. And these people are like, the fact that the general, in my head, the general and John's clothing, specifically in my head during Final Tribal, are just hanging off of their bodies because they've lost so much weight. This is still the part of Survivor history where I think the Survivor producers thought, hey, people want to see them surviving. They don't want to see the strategy stuff. And we see that because they never really have strategy time. It's like the challenge ends, there's like a montage, and then they go to Tribal. When do you guys think that switch kind of went off in production's head of, hey, maybe people actually enjoy this for the social strategic aspect of it? Either one of you guys can go first.
I mean, I feel like it flip-flops a little bit because, like, Thailand, we have that giant cave, right? And and they're on a beach, they're nice, but then we get thrown into the Amazonian jungle where there's crocodiles. We have Guatemala where you have the billion-mile hike in the woods and everyone's dying. So I feel like it just depends on what non-beach location are you at.
But that's really funny because, like Gabe just said in the chat, I was researching some Marquesas things. Yeah, so because of September 11th, they've had to shift the location of Survivor Marquesas to the islands of Polynesia, but it was supposed to be in the Middle East. And could you imagine Survivor if we had never went back to a beach until season 7? Like we would have had Australian outback, Africa, Jordan, then Thailand. Amazon doesn't really count because they can't swim in the river. There's, crocodiles and anacondas in there. So, and also if you look at the challenges from this season, you can
don't worry, we're getting to the challenges.
Yeah, the production were so last minute. Like there's some really basic, like pick up a rock and take it to the beach type moments. It's very.
Are you telling me the kite challenge isn't iconic?
It is iconic because people remember it, but it's not iconic in the fact that people enjoy it.
Exactly. They were just, we need something quick. Somebody think of something.
Let's open a whole bunch of coconuts and see who gets the most.
Chris, I'm glad you brought that up because in this, I love LRGs. I love them. They're amazing. A lot of these challenges this season, I felt like, okay, this is something that you would see in an LRG, and that's not a knock on LRGs.
Please do a kite challenge.
If you make them I will definitely do it.
Because it's quaint and quick. Like you don't have to spend a lot of time just saying, hey, for this challenge, it's the kite challenge is the only one coming to mind at this point. The one where they have to fill the water so it gets to the top. The one that sent Pascal and to Sean.
That was very. There's so many basic ones. Even
the
I
wanted
to look
at.
The stilts. That's right. You're right. The stilt one. But guys, look at the tribal council.
Chris.
Look at the. Oh yeah, true. Look at the tribal council though. It is probably the worst tribal council in Survivor history. It is just
because the jury sits behind them. Is it because?
Think about every aspect of the tribal council, the way it looks, even the voting booth. Everything is so incredibly basic. If you guys look at the
first
torches,
one with a roof, though.
True. But I'm a big Survivor prop collector, and I research the torches. It is the worst and ugliest torch in Survivor history. Even season 1 is not that bad. It is so basic. So they really just threw this shit together last minute.
Wow.
Yeah, and I do think that the challenge is what hurts the season, if that means anything. What helps it is the fact that a lot of the reward challenges are a lot of fun. Like the actual reward aspect of the challenges are a lot of fun. They lead. I think what helps the season is once John goes and there is that, what some people, including myself until today, have called the lull, the rewards themselves have made the episode. We have Pascal and Sean, bonding and, them saying, oh, yes, I don't think I would ever made friends with a white judge from Georgia or a black kid from New York. We have that. And then we get the Pascal and Aaliyah boat trip. The Pascal and Aaliyah boat trip where neither one of them drink. And I felt for Kathy in that moment because, yes, I would have taken advantage of the alcohol as well.
Would you take my mint, Drew? Would you take my mint?
Yeah. My favorite Sean moment of all time is it's like, hey, do you want to eat this piece of doo-doo? Like that's
no, I have to ask this question for real, guys. Like, you're on the island, it's day 25, 26, and somebody comes back to camp and is like, do you want this mint from my mouth? Do you say yes or no?
Nope.
I would do it. I would do it.
I'm so happy to hear that, Chris.
I'm like, give me that mint. Spit it out, Nalia.
Well, and he was so passive aggressive when he was like, no, but we also brought food from our show.
Yeah.
From our reward. Nalia
just goes, oh shit. Oh well, I have this mint. It's one of my favorite Survivor moments.
It's so good. You know what? It's like she actually really did mean it from the heart, and it was very. She's 21 years old, like
Mormon,
young mind,
Mormon,
like, and Mormon. Yeah, it's just like, oh, this is all I have. You want it or not?
Yeah. I think it came from a good place, and the fact that she wouldn't shut up about it, and all of Sean's confessionals is that episode. And you know, I think she tries to give it to Tammy first, Tammy or Giuseppe or somebody first, and like, no, thank you, sweetie. And I'm like, yeah.
Also, on the reward with Pascal, Sean is riding, I think it was a donkey, and he's like,
my balls.
His balls.
My balls. Or when he says, oh, you're beautiful. You're too young for me. And I'm like, way to go, Sean. Way to have morals. Unlike Pascal. So we're going to get to Pascal and Nalia now.
Oh, God.
Oh, okay.
You said it on Australian Outback. Poor man's Roger and Elizabeth.
Yes. I feel like they were trying to do these archetypes in these early parts. And it's like, we have Pascal and Nalia. And I understand, you know, the whole off-screen thing of Nalia and Gabe, and Pascal has his father-son thing, and it's fine, whatever. What we see on camera is this Pascal, and it's never worked for me, because it always, before I even knew about Pascal's doings off beach, it's always just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because it always came off as this man is in love in a non-father-daughter way, and so any interaction that they have is just like, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. And then when his wife comes and he's sitting there saying, I love my wife so much, blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, do you? Chris, because you did say that these two were a couple of your favorites in the season, what about them did it for you? I can phrase that better, but better.
Okay, so for me, it was just like, you have to think about it. I'm watching the show. I'm 11 years old. I'm young. So I'm going to relate to somebody that's young. So Nalia's the youngest, and she's one of the youngest Survivor players at that time to compete on the show, 21, like freshly turned. And it's like, okay, I relate to someone closer to my age. And then has this really strong relationship with this man that's seemingly like a father figure. Obviously, looking at the perspective of as a 33-year-old, it's so different now because it seems a little predatory in some way, especially since Pascal had to resign as a judge because he had a relationship with one of the lawyers and cheated on his wife. It's tough because I see it in a much different light now. But at the time, it seemed very innocent. It seemed sweet. And it like you said, it is the poor man's Roger and Elizabeth. And I was such a huge fan of that duo. And it's a great archetype. And they sort of ran the game together in a way that you kind of see in Survivor in the earlier days, and they were successful.
Keep McKenna, go. I didn't realize that Thailand had already started. I guess
I thought I saw Rob back there.
Yeah.
Rob with two B's.
Yeah, Rob 2 B's.
I echo a lot of that, where like my first watch of Marquesas, I was just like, okay, you know, we're trying to bring back this relationship and it's just not doing anything for me. It wasn't bringing back the same feels where, you know, Roger was like, vote me out first, save Elizabeth. And it just like felt very like father-daughter. And this upon like another watch and another watch, I'm like, this feels weird. It doesn't like give me the warm and fuzzies that Roger and Elizabeth give me. So, that's when I like turn my focus on like some other characters that might be in the scene or something like that. What's going on in the background of where they're talking, and kind of gloss over them a bit.
Yeah. And I mean, I love this cast. This cast is very underrated. The season is very underrated. And I understand that everyone kind of plays their part. And as a black, hearing Pascal say things like if someone like Sean and V made it to the end, and I think that along with the accent has always just in my head, it's like, man, I don't like this guy. So everything that he does is always going to be negative in my head.
Yeah.
Having said that, his moments, his 3-4 episode story arc where him and Sean are best buds, I do love it because I do feel like they had, a good bond with each other. And as we move into final 3, because this is where the KVO stands really start to come out. Kathy wasn't robbed. She got tricked by a 21-year-old to say, "Hey, fix your shirt." I don't even know if Nelly did it on purpose, but in my head she did. Hey, fix your shirt. Kathy goes fix it. She screws up. V, says, "Hey." Going into Final Tribal, for both, before we talk about what actually happened, who did y'all think had the better chance going in?
100%.
Going in fresh.
100% Vesepia. I'm like, how the heck is Nalia winning this? She might get some people's votes, like in Pascal, or maybe John Carroll if he's like bitter or something. But I was like, she's not going to be able to pitch herself.
Chris?
I have to disagree. At the time, I remember being in like the CBS Survivor chat room on
Wow.
this was back on the website. They would have it every night after the episode, and everybody would just say like, "Nalia's winning this game," or Kathy is winning this game, really, or Nalia, blah blah blah. Those were the top 2 always every week, and I just remember thinking, okay, Vesepia doesn't have the longevity of the relationship in the way that Nalia does, but when you watch that final tribal council, okay, I'm 33. I'm still not at the age that Vesepia played Survivor. She was 36 when she won. Nalia is 21 years old. She does not have the sort of experience and the knowledge and the way to present herself the way that Vesepia did, the way that she talked and explained her game. And I think Nalia was very nervous. She stumbled many times, and she self-admittedly said that her game was based on luck and that she didn't start playing the game until day 24. And I think Vesepia at that moment knew that she was able to clutch in the win and say that she played the game all along, where it makes it look like she had put in more effort through the long run. I do think in some way, John and Tammy and Robert were bitter. They have come out and said on certain podcasts and articles that they regret their jury votes and wish they had voted for Nalia years later. I don't know how much that is true, but that was based on bitterness from what they said. I do think going into it, Nalia, but after seeing the performance, for sure, Vesepia.
Yeah. I mean, I think when the seasons that were on Hulu went from like 1 to 10 and through to like late 20s or something like that. So I had already seen a lot of like Survivor and Survivor strategy before going into Marquesas. So like I didn't come a new brain. I was like seeing the show before I got to this season. So like I can understand why, a lot of people are rooting on like Nalia or Kathy over V because they don't see like the underlying strategy, because as Survivor's evolved, we've gotten more into like deep strategy and critical thinking throughout the entire thing.
It's so interesting you say that, McKenna, because it's so cool to see people like watching later seasons and then going back, because there's so many different ways to be a Survivor fan and how you watch it. So that's why I really think these rewatches are so cool that you're doing, Andrew, because it's like you're getting new perspectives on each season and it's always evolving. And it's like I've started from the very beginning, have worked my way up to this, and then somebody could be starting from 45 and then just kind of bounce around. And like you said, you started with the strong evolutionary part of like strategic things matter most, but that early stage was really about relationships and not pissing people off.
Yeah
And the fact that Giuseppe won this jury specifically, where most of these people are OG Rotu, and they still give her the win. And if you look at the three that go Nalia, Pascal's always going to vote Nalia. Fine. Kathy, I don't know what her issue was with how Giuseppe answered her question, but like whatever. Once we get to All Stars, once again, All Stars, but whatever. She's sitting there saying, "Oh yeah, I was robbed in Marquesas." It's like, you weren't robbed, you lost. Yeah. And I think that Zoe's is crazy. And I still don't get why Zoe voted for Nalia, but like, cool.
Why
like,
does Zoe flirt with Jeff and weirdly eat a Snickers out of his hand? Like, why does Zoe do anything?
Why does Zoe?
So
fun fact, Chris has actually met Zoe.
I have met Zoe, and she actually cracked my lobster because I didn't know how to do it.
Okay.
She was sitting next to me, and she's like, "I'll do it for you." And she's like picking out the meat. She's like, "Here you go." And I ate the meat from a lobster that she had on her fingers, but she's very nice.
You could give it back to her what she did to Jeff all those years ago.
Yeah.
She's so funny. She's so odd. I have to like find that picture.
She like telling Tammy like, "Oh yeah, I actually never liked you," and this.
Oh my God, that is so funny. That's so funny. So cringe.
It's so cringe. But she's a very underrated character in this season.
But you know what I'm always confused about is why did she vote in the final 9 for John? Like, did she get clued in?
I think Kathy told her.
They told her and said to just vote that way, and then the next round they vote for her. So it was like, why did they clue her in then to just turn on her? Or is it because they felt like Rob was just weaker? But then he wins immunity after that.
Listen, Zoe's not friends with anybody. Remember, she's not friends with Tammy. She's not friends with the general. She's not friends with John. There's no alliance. So
I compare to Brandon's vote in Africa, where they get Brandon to vote Kelly, and it's like, okay, now we can't trust Brandon at all because he's already shown that he's disloyal. So I think in this situation, I think that because we're told that Kathy and Zoe are actually pretty tight, I think Kathy may have clued Zoe in on the vote. Zoe votes that way. Tammy wins immunity. They don't vote the general because at this point, yeah, he is looking weak. And so then Sean and all these people are like, okay, yeah, I don't think we can trust Zoe. Let's go after her next. And then we'll go boom, Tammy, boom, general. That's the way I perceived it this time around.
What did you think about the little confrontation that Rob, Zoe, and Kathy had at the merge, though? I always find that
another thing that like Rob,
so crazy.
If Rob had just at the summit with Kathy had just told her how everything had been, and then go to the new Maramu Beach and say, "Hey, let's go! Like we're all a team now, and we go." If he had just not tried to stir up a lot of stuff, I think they could have potentially flipped a vote somewhere. But because he went and tried to show Kathy, hey, look, like this is what's happening. Because Kathy was smitten. Kathy, from what we're seeing, Kathy was smitten with everything that Rob was doing with her at the summit. And if he had just stayed in that role going into the merge, I think she would have bought a lot of the stuff that Rob was still selling. Mm-hmm. But because he started that confrontation and then it started to get out that Rob had leaked what Sean's plan was, or not Sean, John's plan was of going Kathy Pascal, Nalia, and then we move on. I think that's what ultimately screws him in the end because he was trying to do too much. If he just taken a backseat a little bit, I do think that he could have made it past this round. McKenna?
Yeah, I agree. I think if you just gotta at the merge, I feel like it's such a hectic time already. Someone else is gonna put their own foot in their mouth. So like take a step back, try and gain the numbers with Kathy because you just formed a bond, and like try and move forward that way. But he might not have been the number one target where we know Boston Rob, he can move and shake. So if he just lets that first merge vote go by and then try and do something afterwards, maybe we can see something switch here where he's in the Kathy position of Pascal, Nalia, Sean, V.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I think this is a great Rob 1.0. If I had to rank all of my Robs, it would be like.
Are you including Island of the Idols or
No? I'm only including the 5 seasons that he played, but because he doesn't overstay his welcome this season, and because of the way, like his I don't know how I didn't remember that, but when he gets voted out, his vote out confessional is so wholesome. It's just like, yeah, this was a game, and I hope that I can be friends with these people. And it's so funny hearing that because when we go into All Stars, and I hate that All Stars keeps coming up, but we go into All Stars, and he's sitting there at that final tribal, and he realizes that all of these people that he has made friends with throughout the years are now pissed off at him because he played the game. I feel for him even more. I feel for him even more. It's like, wow, this man was actually, this man was just playing a game. And these people, especially in All-Stars, were just so upset that their friend voted them out. For the people in the org and LRG community, there's a thing called Friend Viber. Yes. And Friend Viber is basically you go into a game and you only play with your friends and everyone is always sus of it. So no one ever tells, oh, I know this person or I know this person. I think that people went into All-Stars thinking they were going to be playing Friend Viber. Rob didn't think he was going to be playing Friend Viber, and we see how that turned out. That's a story for another day. Overall, so the last 2 questions that we always end this with are, 1, by my account, we have had 1 person back from this season?
2.
1, were they the right people, before we move on, were they the right people to come back from the season and the seasons that they came back for?
I think so. I think Rob coming back for All-Stars, if he doesn't come back there, I don't think we see him anywhere else. I think he needs All-Stars to be able to be who he is, Boston Rob. And then Heroes versus Villains, duh. And then Redemption Island was called out at the Heroes versus Villains finale. And Winners at War.
Then Winners at War. Chris?
I think the 2 of them were correct for sure. I think Vesepia should have been back for Winners at War, especially in terms of like a diversity aspect. It was much needed, especially over Danny Bolt, right? Like it didn't make sense. And you know what, Sean Rector, I've seen so many people I've listened to so many podcasts of people saying, why has he not been back yet? Why? He's still talked about to this day as probably the biggest character of the season.
Yes. Thomas hit the nail on the head.
Actually, I was also seeing Nalia has been posting a lot about like she would go back. But I remember the very early days when they were discussing All-Stars and like the drafts, and like Ken from Thailand was close, Penny from Thailand was close. I remember Sean was also very close. But I don't know what happened. There may have been things that happened to them personally that made them, not able to compete, and that's why Rob was able to compete.
Yeah, and I would say that piggybacking on what y'all said, I do think that Rob, just based off of what he said tonight, I do think that Rob earned his spot for All-Stars. Sadly, I do think that Kathy earned her spot for All-Stars. I do think that Sean is someone that absolutely should have been there. Tammy, yeah, they could have brought her back at some point between 4 and 16. Like I think she should have been in there. Vesepia, yeah, I'll always say it's a crime that she wasn't at least on Winners at War. I've heard the rumor and innuendo is that she was looked at as like maybe a villain to put on Heroes vs. Villains, which is dumb, but also Sandra is a villain on there, and Candace is a hero.
Wasn't there some rumors of Game Changers too?
Yeah, like I've heard a lot of that, and it's like, okay, well, if she's still saying that they don't have a good relationship, I'm going to buy that other than, them saying, oh yeah, we thought about it. I will say that I do think that John Carroll should have been on All Stars more than Rob, and maybe less than Kathy. I think John Carroll should have been there, and I do feel like if he is there, obviously if he's there, then Boston Rob probably is never a thing. Like he's probably just this one-off character that everyone kind of loves to go back and watch. I don't know what that does for John Carroll moving forward, but I do think that John Carroll was, because he was his little Sermon on the Mount thing where he's like laying in the tree talking about how Nalia is and Pascal like really rooting for him to win. It's like, yes, that's the right type of arrogance to have as a villain. That's a fun villain confessional to have. And his downfall is a lot of fun. And I think that his jury speech, there are a lot of bitter jury speeches in this season. John's is just very straight to the point. Like, hey, don't feed me this religious mumbo jumbo, because y'all have both claimed, oh yeah, God and this, that, and the other. I do think that John was such a compelling character on the season that I'm shocked that I had to watch the Sequester mini that they did in 2020 to see John Carroll play again, which is insane. The second question is, once again, I'm going to say this every season until we get to 33. I don't think that anyone pre-33 is going to be on season 50. But if there were from this season, is there anyone from this season that has either come back already or hasn't come back? Is there anyone from the season that you were like dying to see play on season 50? Because I would say John Carroll.
My answer will always be Tammy, but will she? No, I'm pretty sure she's very much done with Survivor. I listened to her RHAP interview and she's like, wow, that's still going, basically. And by the way, her book is intense. So if you're looking for a good intense read, listen to her book. But I feel like I'm not missing anything if nobody returns. I just don't think they're going to put Vesepia on at this point. No. So,
which is a shame.
I agree with McKenna there. They're honestly, even Nalia at this point is 41 years old. Looking at how Survivor has been casting, there's less and less people in their 40s. It's majoritively 20s and early 30s. I don't think they want to see a lot of older people play, and especially, I hate to say it, Jeff has said that he doesn't really like Marquesas and he hated the location.
Yeah.
It's not as memorable as other ones. If anybody is going to come back to from Marquesas, it would be Boston Rob.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's definitely not happening. Thank God. I think I would lose my mind if he came back.
I think because Sean Rector has such a large line following, if there would be someone that I feel like fans could convince production to do, I think it would be Sean. And I would love it. Like, I would love Sean Rector to come back. It's not going to happen because I don't think that anyone pre-33 is coming back. But, yeah, I would say Sean and John.
Like all those are all great. All great. I know Tammy's not doing anything, but my love for her is strong, so I am obligated to say it. But like these would all be great, but just what are the odds of it?
We're 20 plus years ago at this point. So far I have done Borneo. Right now it's Borneo, Africa, Australian Outback, which is still such a shock to me to even say that out loud. Marquesas, I'm going to give a 4.25 out of 5. I really, really loved this season. Even the parts where I thought that it dragged, or in the past, did not drag this time. I think there was a very compelling story arc at the beginning of the game. I think there's a very compelling story arc at the merge. And I think that, yes, even though it is boom, 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 between then and A Tale of Two Cities, when A Tale of Two Cities happens and we get that final 5, and that tribal council is one of the first long tribals that we ever get in the show's history. Like, that tribal actually goes on for a while before Sean, eventually goes. We didn't even touch on the fact that we got our first rock draw in this season, and Pascal falls.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
it's not real.
Stays there. Yeah, I hope Pascal stays there forever because I'm not a Pascal fan. But I give it 4.25. What do you guys think?
Chris, do you want to go first?
I think it's fair. I think that's a very fair. There's some things that could have definitely improved. Like for me, I looked at the challenges. If the challenges were maybe like Survivor Thailand or Amazon level, I think it would have been like a 4.5. But the characters were all great. I mean, so great. And the first big move in Survivor history, it deserves at least the 4.2.
Mm-hmm. I have it. Me and my fiance are currently doing our rewatch, and we, out of 25 seasons, because we're on Caramoan right now, we have it ranked at 12th, so like right in the middle. But Marquesas is one of those ones that I always like. It's a comfy place for me. It's like one that I could be like, you know what, I want to watch some old school Survivor. Let me put on Marquesas. Like, it's not, one of the common ones to be like, oh yes, this is, one that I love. So like, I is it a perfect season? No, but like a 4.5 is kind of where, I live with things for this season, I think.
Okay.
It's probably higher than most, but like there are just certain seasons where I'm like, yes. Like,
Can I ask you a question about your little ranking with Carrie?
Mm-hmm.
What's like right before Marquesas for you guys, and like what's right after?
Okay. Now this is with Carrie, so her opinions are involved. Philippines is above Marquesas, which is not my forte, but she, I think, liked it a little bit more. And then underneath Marquesas is Africa.
Okay. Yeah. That is because right now through 4, and I'll get to that question in a second. Through 4, it goes Borneo, Marquesas, Africa, Australian Outback. Thomas, I will answer this question on what, Saturday, Sunday? When is Pearl Islands? Pearl Islands would be Saturday. I'll answer this question Saturday night. I have a feeling that Marquesas will probably be 4th of the first 7, but we'll see. For all I know, I'll love Thailand tomorrow.
No, you
doubt it, but yeah, I am not looking forward to starting that tonight.
Have fun.
Oh my goodness. But Chris, McKenna, thank you guys so much. McKenna, when will we be seeing you guys, or when will we be seeing you next?
Panama and Cook Islands. So get ready. Double trouble.
So those are both next week. I think those are both next week. And Chris, we're having you back at least one more time, right?
Yes, probably for One World.
For One World, yes. So we got, I think that's like mid-June at this point. It's like mid-June. Thank you both so much for taking. I know that it was a little later in the day. Life finally did catch up to me today, so I'm hoping to get back on schedule for Thailand. Going into tomorrow, I have to knock out maybe 3 episodes of Thailand tonight to like be on schedule. I'm so looking forward to that because I think the Gandia episode happens in episode 34.
Oh, God.
So thank you all for tuning in. Everyone in the chat, thank you so much. This has been a great start to all of this. I love Marquesas, and we will see you all on the other side.